Pickup Lines is presented by Gamez Law Firm. Personal injury guidance for more than 50 years. Gamez Law fights. By Integrity Roofing and Siding. Family owned and operated for more than 40 years, serving the San Antonio area for roofing, siding, and renovation needs. And by the Sabinal Group. For nearly 20 years, serving the San Antonio region through professional minority general contracting services. Pickup Lines is broadcast from inside the all-electric Lexus RZ450e, courtesy of North Park Lexus at Dominion and North Park Lexus of San Antonio.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you're staying warm and dry wherever you are. This is Ernie Zuniga for another episode of Pickup Lines, the talk show in a car. And today, here in San Antonio, there's a slight drizzle in the air, and I'm told the sun may not shine for another few days. But nonetheless, rain, shine, sleet, snow, or hail, we have Dr. William Sponsel here. You know, remember that Dos Equis beer promotion commercial they had recently, not too long ago, with the most interesting man in the world? I may have found the real-life version here. Dr. Sponsel, I must say, you're a pretty interesting guy.
Well, thank you. You too.
Well, no, not nearly as... Look, the viewers will see. Hopefully, over the course of the next few minutes, I'm going to explain in detail why I think you're one of the most interesting people I've ever met here. Let's start off with your day job. You are an ophthalmologist.
Yes.
Which is dealing with all things with your eyes.
Yes. Yeah. And we take care of people who have had eye trauma. We take care of people who have bad glaucoma and diabetes and macular disease. Lots of things cause visual loss. So
no pun intended, you quite literally see some crazy things sometimes, I would imagine.
all the time.
Right. I want to bring people's attention to where we are, because I know you probably can't tell. You just see some trees in the background and a fence, whatever. But we are outside the Bowdoin Eye Care and Health Institute, the Rosenberg School of Optometry here with the University of Incarnate Word, not too far from the Frostbank Center,
Right.
On the east side of town. A building that I know I've driven by or been by a number of times and just did not realize all of this is here.
Yeah, fabulous facility. Stanley Rosenberg has just done a wonderful thing for the community by making a massive gift to start South Texas' first optometry department. I was the director of clinical research at the Health Science Center, where we have an ophthalmology department.
Right.
Of great repute with wonderful doctors. We do a lot of surgery and lasers and so on. But the community at large needs primary health care in their neighborhoods. And Stanley had that vision. He put the big department up near the Health Science Center on Data Point. And that's a fabulous place, well-equipped, great staff.
Yeah.
We've had over 60 publications since I came on as a professor of vision sciences there more than a decade ago. So we've been having lots of international presentations, publications, emanating, just as we used to when I was director at the Health Science Center, now from Incarnate Word, the sister institution in this great city. So I've had the privilege of traveling the world, first hitchhiking as a teenager.
So let me just stop you right there, because you kind of just glossed over that.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about your foundation here in just a little bit.
Yeah.
So you grew up in the Twin Cities, like in the Minnesota area.
Right.
But yes, you've traveled the world, and we'll talk about some of the things. You're probably the only person I've ever interviewed that has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. You made it to the summit.
Yeah, and we raised $27,000 and built 2 new operating rooms in our African facility in Malawi, where we see patients, thousands of patients there. And also we have a fantastic facility in Guatemala. And both of these are in 2 of the poorer parts of the world, one in each hemisphere.
Okay, so back to hitchhiking. You hitchhiked as a teenager in all your travels. Do you have any crazy stories or brushes with death or anything that you can talk about?
Certainly, yeah. I mean, I hitchhiked across all of North Africa with no money. That was exciting.
You're a teenager.
Yeah, 16. So I went, I already had hitchhiked up to Scandinavia to see my girlfriend at the time, whose name was Kari Olberga. I met her as an exchange student in Minnesota and was quite smitten. And I was a ski racer, so I got to train with all the B teams of the Austrians and the Germans and Scandinavian teams and so on in Alpe d'Huez in France. And then each summer I would head off, as when the snow was melting in June, take off for a couple months and go as far as I could up into the far reaches of Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Scandinavia, Africa. Each year seeing how many countries we could bag and how many people we could meet.
So this is, I just want to tell you, for someone who's never really left the continental United States, this is crazy to me. But so you grow up, you're going to school, obviously, you're in high school. And your parents, are they with you, or they're aware that you're doing all of this, or what's happening at home?
There were 8 kids in the family, and my dad was an orthopedic surgeon, and they could always make another one if anything had happened.
Oh, come on.
So,
sure, why not?
I think they didn't have that much control over my actions.
They're like, hey, have you seen William? Haven't seen him in a few hours.
I think I skipped half of my last senior year. And then I got to make up all my missing chemistry stuff in a week, and they let me graduate. So I did quite well. I did very well on all these standardized tests that were guaranteeing me places in college. So I decided to take a year off and see more of the world right after I got out of high school.
Did you know at the time, though, that you were going to pursue optometry or ophthalmology, or what? Like, did you know what you wanted to do for a career?
My first big change was when I went to be a lab assistant with a guy who was working in England at a famous laboratory, and I knew nothing. I mean, I had really very minimal actual real knowledge. I was always able to get A's by taking out the Encyclopedia Britannica at 1 a.m. and
back when you had the hard copies. Yeah. Yes, you had.
And that way,
you had to do that.
I was missing 2 or 3 days of school all winter long every week to ski race. And I made it as an alternate to the U.S. team, junior team. And I wouldn't have been going to medical school if I hadn't been on a downhill course going 65 miles an hour and had my ski fly 30 feet in the air and broke my legs. The foot was pointing backwards.
Oh, no.
And then I had to, thankfully, I didn't hit any of the trees as I went into the forest. I had a helmet on, but it wouldn't have done me much good.
There went your Olympic career.
Well, yeah. So I tried. I had a long cast on for 9 months, and they still allowed me to go in the regional championships for downhill the next year after I'd only been out for 3 months, and they were questioning whether this was prudent. And I didn't do too badly, but I was no longer considered the material in need for the junior men's team. But one thing I can tell you, though,
yes.
You see, they have all this drug abuse these days. In those days, they were much cleverer, because what they would do is the junior men would get to train with the senior women with the same U.S. ski team coaches.
Okay.
And then you don't need artificial hormones, because you jump higher and you do everything better in front of all these older women who are fantastic athletes and brilliant people. So, there are ways we can get out of these. There are natural ways to handle young people and make them become productive, in my opinion.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Your logic it's just very intriguing and fascinating to me. But with a massive cast on your leg, it's hard to hitchhike around the world. And travel.
But I did crazy things, because I water skied with that thing on. I won gold medals in the NASTAR Open, thing on one leg. I climbed mountains with that thing on. So I was probably not my best ally in letting it heal properly.
Right.
but I had, and actually, people were pitying me, and I thought, well, this is totally fun, because I figured out how to drive my pickup truck using the crutch technique.
The crutch, not the clutch, the crutch.
You put your leg up on the passenger side, and then use your crutch for the clutch. And I could run a 3-legged race and beat guys around the school hallways. So I think, and you swing that big cast back and forth, you can really make some serious time.
Create some momentum and everything.
Yeah, right. So I think you can always make the best of things if you, and I really love being put in situations where it's more of a challenge.
Okay.
That's why this crazy thing they're going to do next Sunday with all these pro guys, instead of having them play a real fake football game, they're going to have them do all these weird things. That's going to be kind of fun for people to watch.
You're talking about the Pro Bowl?
The Pro Games.
The Pro Games, yeah. It's like a skills challenge and everything. Right. Yeah, the Pro Bowl is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Maybe you can fix that. You could be commissioner of the NFL one day and fix all of that.
Well, I did get to be commissioner of something. So for a decade, the American Academy of Ophthalmology made me director of screening for eye disease in the world. So that was a pretty big deal. And we developed lots of new techniques that were highly sensitive and specific to find what are often difficult to diagnose early diseases and even more advanced forms of disease.
Yeah.
And so we had worked with people like Prevent Blindness Texas. There's a great organization. And the Lions here, they're fabulous.
Right.
And we had screening vans in all 4 congressional districts. We had a big budget and screened thousands, at least 5,000-6,000 people in the whole Bexar County region.
Yeah.
And we found very high levels of disease, undiagnosed and untreated, particularly in the south side. When we went to the HEB, who were our sponsors, they helped us out with everything. HEB were great. And they set us up with the 240 volts to run the van. And we had equipment that wasn't even yet in real clinics, that hadn't yet been commercialized. And we were actually assessing the utility and published all the results in the American Journal of Ophthalmology. But it turns out that the highest need area in our area is in that South Cross area. That's not very far away from the Brook City base.
Right.
And
what year is this again?
Well, this is years back. I mean,
so it's been a while.
Decades ago. And yet I have not yet seen the development like this that we need in that part of town, even though it's sort of growing. I mean, there's all sorts of wonderful development there.
True. Brooks is exploding. But yeah, so again, we're here, if you're just joining us, on the east side of town, not too far from the Frostbank Center, Freeman Coliseum, where UIW has a school of optometry and ophthalmology here and everything. And is it safe to say, because I'm probably guilty of this myself, we take our eyes for granted?
Yes. And to some extent, that's a blessing. I mean, if you knew all the things that were going on in your eyes...
I want to know?
Yeah, well, I love teaching about it, and it's exciting to work with eyes. If you compare what an eye can pick up in terms of energy and convert it into a neural signal to the next most sensitive part of your body, which incidentally is the tongue, which some people put things through, etc.
Not me.
Yeah, I know, but it's crazy. A big chunk of the brain's devoted to the tongue. So that's the second most sensitive thing on your body.
Learned something new today.
Yeah, it helps you swallow and talk, and you can gauge temperature and move food around and masticate and everything else. I said masticate.
I can't. I was just saying, thank you, doctor.
Serious.
Thank you.
Yeah, etc. So with the tongue, there's a great big chunk of the homunculus of the brain that's devoted to the tongue, and it's used. But the eye takes up a big chunk of the brain, and half of the processing, however, is done in skinny little retina at the back.
Okay.
It's incredibly complex, highest metabolic tissue in the entire human body.
Right.
And it gets hot because you're looking at light and things, and it has to have a cooling system. It's amazing.
That's why we don't look directly into the sun.
Right. Please don't do that.
No.
But anyway...
You couldn't do it today if you wanted to.
The long and the short of it is, if you were to compare the ability of the eye to detect something to the tongue, it's like comparing dropping a pea on your toe, that the eye can detect, to dropping the earth on your toe. 10 to the 23rd, Avogadro's number. That is how amazing it is to take a few photons.
There's math involved.
Yeah, some of the smallest
I see what
of
you're saying.
all known particles. Your human body can turn into a signal that brings us all the beauty of art, and we can pair it up with music, and I really enjoy this world. And people who are deprived or lose during the course of their life disability, it's an important thing to try to keep it and restore it. And I was falling in every ski race until I got my glasses when I was 17. I was good enough to kind of get into the A level, and compete internationally. But when I got the glasses, all of a sudden I could see 6 or 8, 10 gates down before I had to react to them as they occurred and know. Oh man, I had to memorize where the ice was. Once I had the glasses, my mind could be down there, my body up here. It was a totally different game.
And the ladies were even more pretty, right?
Well, that's also usually true.
Yeah. Let me stop here, because we're going to have music in just a little while as well. You think, like I said, we've just touched the surface here. I want to mention the foundation, because you have your Sight for Life Foundation, and I was thrilled to MC an event you guys had in November, a fundraiser, and I learned a lot about what you do and everything like that. How much the devices like this that we're looking into right now, the iPhones and the iPads and the devices of the world, contributed to the overall eye health of humanity.
A lot. But they're kind of offshoots of their predecessors, which contributed in many ways. So I got my doctoral degree after medical school by doing research on the visual function loss in glaucoma and the response to certain drugs that turned out to be very positive and got a lot of international attention for that work. And a guy named Wozniak made me a graphics tablet so I could actually trace on the first Apple computer brought to
Steve
Europe.
Wozniak.
Yeah.
Okay, that Wozniak.
Yeah,
Yes, okay.
and they sent me this Apple IIe computer so I could trace all these paper records and turn them into computer documentation and then learn how to make algorithms that would score the visual fields. And we learned so much that ultimately it led us to understand how the two eyes in the brain are really totally integrated, and that the way that visual field progression occurs in glaucoma is totally controlled by the brain to minimize the loss of binocular vision. So, and amazingly, that took 40 years or so to finally convince everyone that the two eyes in the brain are one thing, and that they really work together, even in diseases like glaucoma that looks like a random mess, but it's not. And so, as we learn more about the underlying physiopathological issues, we can come up with better treatments for people, and the computers are part of the whole thing. So, and we started out with a 16K computer to make those algorithms in those days. Everything we have now is amazing. We can get great retinal imaging on cameras just like these.
Sure,
we can take them into the middle of nowhere. We now have visual field analysis that we can put on virtual reality goggles, and I can look at the visual fields that are currently being measured in Africa and Malawi, in one of the poorest countries in the world, and in the central highlands of Guatemala at the same time.
Which is a perfect segue to the work that you've done over there, because you literally have clinics over there in Guatemala and in Malawi, Africa.
Correct.
And you've talked about, and there are statistics out there in terms of the eye health. Was it Malawi, which is one of the poorest countries in the world? 1% of the population is blind, according to your website, and 40% of those people are blind because of cataracts.
Right. And so cataracts are remediable, and in a way that means you can kind of just parachute in, take out the cataract, and if you're lucky and don't have too many stitches, they won't get an infection sometime later.
Right.
And you're saving lots of people who are in bad shape. And that's happening all over the world. There's lots of great medical mission work going on worldwide, where people from the States and Europe and Australia, we all meet up and get together and have a good time working on eyes with this one-off thing, which is a cataract usually. Now, when you have glaucoma, which is the number one cause of irreversible visual loss in people of sub-Saharan African heritage, that means most of Africa and many urban centers around the United States and so on, those diseases are more insidious. They sneak up on you. They're like the sneak thief of sight. They can steal away half your axons that go to your optic nerve without you necessarily even seeing it happen, until it gets so late that both eyes have overlapping areas that can't see, and they start knocking into things. And you can't buy those wires back. You could be Bill Gates. You cannot buy axons.
Right.
So you've got to find the disease, and that's where this detection work we were doing with the Lions and Prevent Blindness and so on, and the American Academy of Ophthalmology was so important, because we were actually being able to dig up. See, there's some diseases like diabetes, glaucoma, high blood pressure. These things, don't come out and hit you in the face, and people get a terrible amount of permanent loss to their kidneys or their brain, or whatever it may be, with whatever disease they may have. With these are asymptomatic diseases, so we have to pick them up before they devastate the patient.
You have to be proactive.
Yeah.
So essentially, you raise money, and then you get enough to fund the trip to go to Malawi or Guatemala. You show up there for a few days, or as long as you can, and work with the people that are and the equipment that's already on the ground there, and do as many procedures as you can.
Yeah, and this is all evolved from my wanderlust, love of going to different cultures and so on. And so I would go down for 8 or 10 days with a group, and then leave some equipment behind, and we have to figure out where to store it in somebody's closets. If anything happened to me, I dropped dead, the whole thing's over, But we helped thousands of people year after year, but really it was kind of like you're parachuting in and disappearing, and you can do cataracts, but you can't do a lot of other stuff that really needs constant attention, like glaucoma and diabetic disease treatment and so on. So over enough years, we had enough stuff that we'd gotten gifted to us or somehow transported down there that I was thinking of, buying a hospital. And then the guy who owned the hospital, who was based in Atlanta, his grandparents started it, and his parents kept it going. It was sort of a missionary hospital, which is in this town of Chichicastenango. Was thinking of getting rid of it. And, I met up with him, and he said, "Hey, let me see what you do." And we were, at the time, we were operating an old Bombero station near an apple orchard in the middle of cornfields, that had been converted so we could have 4 little operating rooms.
Right.
And one of the Methodist churches here, University United Methodist Church, was very instrumental in helping to put generators down there, and they brought teams of 90 guys at a time to build the whole thing. And then year after year, we'd go back, and ENT people and dentists and other people would alternate and use the place. And it was great. The only problem was we'd have to waste a day or two setting up.
Yeah.
And then it would be always not quite have everything we need and start running out of stuff by Thursday, and, wondering, oh my God, there's another 100 people that need surgery. Where are we going to get the stuff? So we realized we had to have a more sustainable thing that was going to work 6 days a week, 52 weeks a year if possible. And that when Mark Snoddy, the guy from Atlanta, saw what we were doing, he was just dumbfounded and said, "Okay, fine. You can have the ground floor. I'm going to remodel the whole place." So he kept his hospital in Chichicastenango, which is in the middle of one of the biggest marketplaces in all of Central America. It's a beautiful city.
Yeah.
And, it's vibrant. The people are right there. And if some European, tourist has eye allergy, they buy a bottle of eye drops from us. It will pay for a cataract operation. So it's totally sustainable. And the kind of people who need injections of something like Avastin have to have a rich diet that has lots of glucose corn syrup stuff in it. Well, guess what? Those people are helping us fund the poor people who can't afford the cataract surgery.
Yeah.
So the thing has become very sustainable using a system that's kind of was masterminded in India, where the rich help pay for the poor.
Got it. And the rest is history so far. You can find out more about this, because I know we're throwing a lot at you here. The website, sightforlifefoundation.com. It talks about the nonprofit, which helps people here locally, obviously, but primarily in these other parts of the world that maybe don't have the access. I mean, you were talking about needing air conditioning and just like basic necessities that a lot of us will take for granted. We have a few more minutes here with Dr. William Sponsel, the founder and chairman of Sight for Life, the most interesting man in the world, traveled 100 countries. You've scaled Mount Kilimanjaro. What year did you do that?
Well, I was about 3 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago.
I can barely get out of bed some mornings. And, oh, by the way, Mount Kilimanjaro is 19,341 feet.
It's the highest from bottom to top in the world. So it doesn't reach the same altitude as the Andes, but or as the ones over there in, Southeast Asia. But they start from a higher altitude. So it's a pretty good climb.
You just had a birthday, by the way, over the weekend, so happy belated birthday.
Well, thank you
seem
very
to be
much.
getting younger or more vibrant.
I just don't have enough to do. So what we really want to do
Clearly
now,
you don't.
I've mentioned this, the fact that we've had this very fruitful collaboration with Incarnate Word, and I've been able to work as their professor of vision sciences. I was director of clinical research and ophthalmology at the Health Science Center.
Right.
And I've worked with everybody around here who does anything to do with eyes. We've had many grants for studying ocular trauma with people from the Southwest Research Institute. And I am also an adjunct professor of, biomedical engineering with UTSA. And I've enjoyed really working with some of the best scientists in the world. San Antonio is replete with brilliant people. And they all have a great attitude.
That is true.
And, this is a place people really like to get things done. So what I'd like to see now that there's a medical school campus that's absolutely fabulous on the old Brook City base, we want to see a good eye department there that does ophthalmology, that will get people the surgery they need in the area of highest need in Bexar County, and really as a feeder in for the whole of South Texas. There's all these people in the valley, all the people down on the South Coast. I'll tell you something. I was involved in some big studies that showed early on that the highest prevalence of glaucoma in the United States was amongst African American males over the age of 75. And that was the Baltimore Eye Study. I wasn't one of the co-investigators, but I worked with the people who did that, and I followed up with our screening program with that knowledge in mind.
Yeah.
And that's why this part of town is great, because we have a nice mixed population that has lots of African Americans, lots of Hispanic people, and it's a great place to do studies to compare differences between the subpopulations, how they respond to treatment, etc. However, what we found later, a big NIH study was done, and they went to Nogales and found out, oh no, it's not this 10.5% prevalence among African American males that's the highest. The highest is actually in Hispanic females of Mexican American origin, who, basically are frequently looking after a grandchild while their adult parent, child of theirs, is working.
Correct.
And so frequently the mothers don't come. And the prevalence of glaucoma.
Interesting.
And so we need to help these devoted, sacrificing women of South Texas, the preponderance of whom are Hispanic and are not getting seen, are suffering severe visual field loss. And I want to do something about it. We got to do something by setting up the right kind of facility at the Brook City base, in an appropriate building, and we have plans. We really want to work with you to, bring this together.
Okay. Well, we have friends at Brook City Base, so if they get to see this, hopefully we can send out positive vibes and make it happen here. A few more minutes with Dr. William Sponsel. I promised you some musical entertainment earlier, and I'm a man of my word. So among the many, many things that and again, we don't even have enough time or bandwidth to get into all of the stuff that this man has done, but you're also a musician, as I learned recently. And your instrument of choice is?
The harmonica.
The harmonica.
The same one Bob Dylan got from the guy in the movie. You guys are going to have to go see.
But hold on a second. You have two harmonicas here just in your lap.
Oh,
but this man has a collection.
No, if you're going to jam with people, you got to have them all. You got to be able to listen to what's being played and figure out how to insinuate your sound. So there's a proper collection of harmonicas.
Is this all of your harmonicas?
No, there are more.
There's probably a dozen.
But all these are all working.
Okay.
And you can play with them and make them do what you want.
So are you going to do a little Dylan for us, or what are you going to do?
Let's just do something.
Dr. William Sponsel, ladies and gentlemen, in concert here at the University of Cornwall.
It's better with accompanying music, but it's fun.
So I can help you with that.
All right, let's do that. He said he couldn't play anything because of a copyright problem.
If I played Dylan on the radio here, then I would have to pay Bob Dylan probably $500,000
exactly,
for copyright.
But wouldn't that be great?
Well, maybe when the show gets big enough, we'll do that. This is fascinating stuff. I love everything about you. Just your story, your travels, the daring nature that you have apparently had since you were a young man.
Well, I'm glad I passed it on to my daughter and my son. And my daughter has also been to at least 8 different countries.
Right.
She one night delivered 3 babies that were trapped in the pelvis of women in Malawi. And
triplets, or these are 3 separate mothers?
These are 3 separate mothers who were so undernourished and had inadequate ability, so that you actually have a ruptured uterus. And you save the kid and the mom when you do that operation. And they ran out of scrubs at 5 a.m. and they had to close the operating room. There's need everywhere. And she's now doing great work in the United States. But it's so fun to. She was my inspiration because she went to Guatemala before I did. She worked with spina bifida kids in Antigua at the Hermano Pedro Hospital. He's one of the great saints of the Western Hemisphere.
Okay.
And then, she went to Botswana and Malawi and, oh God, I can't remember all the places. And now came back.
Your passport is like this thick.
But but half of it lately is just to visit my kids.
You got to keep up with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're moving targets. I think it's amazing what you do. I mean, all the stuff, the life experiences and the travel is fascinating on its own. But at the end of the day, the man's day job is to help people with their eyesight locally, just and internationally. People who can afford it and people who cannot ever afford it or could never conceive of affording it. So I think it's pretty cool what you do. Sightforlifefoundation.com is the website if you want to find out more about the local nonprofit and his scaling Mount Kilimanjaro and everything. Again, sightforlifefoundation.com. So great to visit with you today.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Do you feel like I showed up for remedial math and the man's teaching honors calculus here? Like, I'm just like, it's going to take me a few minutes for all this to process.
Well, I can tell you this. The people who come on these trips with us,
yes,
and you're all welcome to sign up.
Okay.
They're changed. And they, their politics may or may not change, but they're never going to blame a poor person for their problems when they see these guys climbing up a 60-degree slope with about 80 pounds of wood on their back to eat the home of their child. They're poor because of where they were born, not because they don't work hard. So, we're very fortunate to be born where we are, and I think the big eye-opener is you may have different ways of politically want to solve the problems of the world, but, you're never again going to, blame the guy, who has to get hit by a pitch to get to first base while you're standing on third and your parents put you there. I see. We got a job to do. We don't live forever. We got a few years to do something useful, and I'd like to help anyone who wants to get involved.
Super. Sightforlifefoundation.com. Find out more about the Sight for Life Foundation here in San Antonio. Thanks again, sir. All the best to you. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you again.
There he is, Dr. William Sponsel. This will be a tough act to follow. We'll have to see whoever's going to be in the chair next has a tough act to follow. But all the best to you, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thanks a lot.
All right, that's another episode of Pickup Lines. We'll be back again very soon. Stay warm, stay dry, and have a great day. Bye for now.